Welcome back to Timeline Divergence. For generations, we have looked up at the night sky and felt a profound sense of peace. You step outside on a quiet evening, pull out your smartphone, and point a stargazing application at the glittering canopy above. You see constellations, distant planets, and infinite silence. Humanity has always romanticized this void. We imagine the universe as a vast, empty ocean, just waiting for our grand ships to set sail and explore its gentle waves. We thought we were the main characters of the cosmos, but that comforting illusion is a lie. The universe is not a peaceful ocean. Since the early 1930s, human beings have been leaking artificial radio waves into space. Every television broadcast, every radar ping, every global news report has been radiating outward at the speed of light. Right now, there is an invisible bubble of our noise expanding roughly 100 light years in every direction. We did not just leak noise by accident. In 1974, our brightest minds intentionally broadcasted the Arecibo message toward a distant star cluster. We encoded our biological makeup, the exact population of our planet, and a detailed map pointing directly to our solar system. We packed our cosmic greeting card with everything a predator would need to find us, categorize us, and evaluate our defenses. We were naive. We assumed that anything older and smarter than us would naturally be peaceful and enlightened. But consider the brutal laws of nature on our own planet. The apex predator does not negotiate with its prey. When the Spanish galleons arrived on the shores of the New World, the indigenous empires were not greeted with profound philosophy or shared technology. They were greeted with absolute conquest. The technological gap doomed them instantly. Humanity spent the last century believing we were whispering into an empty canyon. We never stopped to think we might be ringing the dinner bell in a very dark jungle. What if the silence of the stars is not because they are empty, but because everyone else is hiding? What if our relentless broadcasting has already sealed our fate? The moment an alien civilization receives our signal, the timeline of human history fractures forever. The comforting isolation we have known since the dawn of our species evaporates in an instant. We are no longer alone, and they know exactly where we live. Picture yourself as an exhausted data analyst on a Tuesday morning at a remote observatory. Your coffee is cold. The hum of the servers is driving you insane. You are staring at a screen of meaningless static, a chaotic ocean of cosmic background noise that has looked exactly the same for 30 years. And then, the static organizes itself. It is not a random burst from a dying star. It is a perfect, undeniable pattern of prime numbers repeating in a loop. A cold sweat breaks out on the back of your neck. You are the very first human being to realize that the universe is looking right back at you. You might think the immediate reaction is to call the president or launch a global news broadcast. But that is not how the scientific community operates. The reality is far more bureaucratic and terrifyingly slow. Decades ago, the International Academy of Astronautics drafted a strict set of rules known as the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Post-Detection Protocol. The absolute first step is rigorous, exhaustive cross-checking. We have been fooled before. For 17 long years, astronomers at an Australian observatory tracked a mysterious, powerful radio burst. They thought it was a cosmic anomaly. It turned out to be the microwave oven in their own break room. When someone opened the door before the timer finished, it confused the most advanced telescope on Earth. So, you verify. You ask observatories in Europe, in Asia, and in the Americas to point their massive dishes at the exact same coordinates. Hours pass. The confirmation comes back positive. It is real. It is an artificial transmission from a distant star system. Now, the absolute most critical rule of the protocol kicks in. It is a matter of species survival. Do not answer. Under no circumstances is any nation, any organization, or any individual allowed to send a reply without the unanimous consent of the United Nations. You must remain completely silent. The logic is chilling. If you are hiding in a dark jungle and you hear a twig snap, you do not yell out to ask who is there. You hold your breath. But here's where the academic simulation crashes into the messy, unpredictable reality of human nature. The protocol is an unwritten agreement. It has zero legal binding power. While politicians argue in closed rooms about the philosophical implications, the internet is already tearing itself apart. Information wants to be free, and a signal of this magnitude cannot be contained. A rogue intern leaks the raw data on a random internet forum. Within minutes, the algorithms push it to billions of smartphones. Humanity does not unite in awe. Humanity fractures in absolute panic. Stock markets evaporate in seconds. Supply chains freeze as truck drivers abandon their routes to be with their families. Picture the streets of major cities. They do not look like a science fiction movie with orderly evacuations. They look like a primal frenzy. People are not staring at the sky in wonder. They are staring at their screens, watching the fabric of modern civilization unravel in real time. Grocery store shelves are emptied in hours. The fragile illusion of order shatters because the fundamental truth of our existence has been rewritten. And then, the ultimate nightmare scenario unfolds. We do not need a government to doom us. All it takes is one terrified billionaire with a private deep space transmitter, one apocalyptic cult wanting to meet their makers, or one panicked corporation trying to negotiate peace. Someone, somewhere, points a massive radio dish at the sky and screams a reply into the void. They bypass every rule to say hello. It is the ultimate tragic irony. We spent many long thousands of years building a society based on communication, only to realize that our very greatest weapon was silence all along. When the unauthorized signal beams out from Earth, breaking the cardinal rule of survival, the die is cast. The message rockets out into the chilling blackness of space, carrying the hopes and the terror of 8 billion souls. Have we just invited enlightenment, or have we given the hunter the exact coordinates for a preemptive strike? Imagine the technological ladder of the universe. We often think of ourselves as being near the top because we can split the atom, edit the genetic code, and launch gleaming rockets into the upper atmosphere. But in the eyes of a civilization capable of traveling between the stars, our most advanced technology is as primitive as a sharpened stick held by a caveman. Stephen Hawking, one of the most brilliant minds to ever grace our planet, issued a chilling warning before he passed away. He did not fear little green men in flying saucers. He feared the cold, mathematical reality of the power gap. Hawking frequently compared an alien arrival to the moment Christopher Columbus stepped onto the shores of the Americas. To the people living there, it was a total cataclysm. It was not a meeting of equals. It was a collision between two worlds, separated by thousands of years of military and technological development. The outcome was not a beautiful cultural exchange or a peaceful trade agreement. It was the total erasure of a way of life. The indigenous empires had their own complex religions, their own sophisticated mathematics, and their own grand cities. But all of that was rendered irrelevant in the face of steel, gunpowder, and smallpox. The technological gap did not just disadvantage them, it doomed them instantly. Let us simplify this concept using a visual metaphor. Do not think of these visitors as humans from the future or enlightened travelers. Think of them as something else entirely. Imagine a modern armored tank brigade rolling over a colony of microscopic bacteria in a muddy field. The tank drivers do not hate the bacteria. They do not even feel a sense of rivalry or competition. In fact, they do not even notice the bacteria are there. The bacteria have no concept of what a tank is, how its engine works, or why it is crushing their world into the earth. To the tank, the bacteria are simply part of the landscape to be paved over for a new road. This is the terrifying scale of the difference between us and a Type 2 or Type 3 civilization on the Kardashev scale. They operate on laws of physics we have not even dreamed of yet. They do not need to be evil to destroy us. They simply need to be busy. When the reality of this power gap finally hits the global consciousness, the psychological damage to our species is total. Our entire civilization is built on the rock-solid foundation that we are the masters of our domain. We are the apex predators. We are the center of the universe's story. But suddenly, we are forced to realize that we are just a biological footnote in a much larger, much older, and much colder galactic history. This is the Columbus effect in its purest form. It is the moment when the dominant species of a planet realizes it is actually at the bottom of the food chain. Consider the institutions that hold our world together. Religions have spent thousands of years telling us that we were made in the image of a divine creator and that we are special. What happens to that belief when we see a civilization that can move entire stars like chess pieces or build megastructures that dwarf our entire sun. Economics is based on the idea of long-term growth and individual stability. But why would you save for a retirement 40 years from now when you know that a superior force could dismantle your planet for spare parts tomorrow morning? The global stock market would not just crash. The very concept of money would cease to exist. The value of gold, oil, and data vanishes when you are faced with a species that has mastered the transmutation of matter. Picture yourself sitting in your living room, staring at your phone. You see the news reports. The anchors are not talking about politics or local weather. They are showing a high-resolution image captured by a deep space telescope. It is not a planet. It is a structure, a machine the size of a solar system. It is moving toward us at 90% of the speed of light. In that one single moment, your job, your mortgage, and your grand dreams for your children all evaporate. They become meaningless noise. You realize with a sickening dread that you are not a citizen of a powerful country. You are simply a member of a vulnerable biological group that has just been discovered by a giant. This is the moment humanity loses its ego forever. We are forced to look at ourselves not as the conquerors of Earth, but as a fragile, shivering species clinging to a pale blue dot in a very crowded and very dangerous neighborhood. We have been loud, we have been arrogant, and we have been incredibly lucky. But our luck just ran out. The screen of our history is being wiped clean by a hand we cannot see and a mind we cannot understand. And whatever is written next on the pages of our timeline will not be written by us. Now we must confront the cold, unyielding logic of the universe. We often like to imagine that a highly advanced civilization would be benevolent, having outgrown the petty violence of its youth. We hope that their superior intelligence would lead to a superior morality. But in a simulation of pure survival, hope is a luxury that no one can afford. Why would a species capable of harnessing the energy of an entire galaxy bother to destroy a tiny, primitive civilization like ours? The answer is not found in hatred or malice. It is found in the terrifying mathematics of the dark forest. To understand this, we must accept two fundamental axioms of cosmic sociology. First, the primary need of any civilization is to survive. Second, while a civilization continuously grows and expands, the total amount of matter and resources in the universe remains constant. This creates a zero-sum game on a galactic scale. But there is a third factor that turns the universe into a graveyard. It is called the chain of suspicion. Imagine you are a hunter in a pitch-black forest. You are moving silently, clutching your weapon, knowing that you are not alone. Suddenly, you see a faint flickering light in the distance. Another hunter. You do not know if that hunter is friendly or hostile. You might want to reach out and say hello, to suggest a peaceful alliance. But can you take that risk? Even if you are benevolent, you have no way of knowing if the other hunter is benevolent. And even if you believe they are good, you cannot be sure that they believe you are good. This is a recursive loop of paranoia that cannot be broken by communication. In the time it takes for a message to travel between stars, the intentions of a species can change a dozen times. In the cosmic dark, trust is a mathematical impossibility, and the only universal language is a preemptive strike. This suspicion is magnified by a phenomenon known as the technological explosion. We look at our own history and see that it took us millions of years to master fire, but only a few thousand years to build cities. Then, in the blink of an eye, we went from riding horses to walking on the moon and splitting the atom. In cosmic terms, human progress is not a slow climb, it is a vertical spike. A civilization that is primitive today could develop a weapon capable of destroying a star system in just a few centuries. To an ancient advanced species, a new signal from a planet like Earth is not an opportunity for friendship. It is a ticking time bomb. They cannot wait for us to become their equals, because by the time we are equals, we might also be their executioners. The only logical way to ensure their own survival is to eliminate the threat while it is still in its cradle. How does a master of the galaxy carry out such a task? They do not send vast armadas of starships or engage in cinematic space battles. That would be a waste of energy and a risk to their own location, Instead, they act with the quiet efficiency of a professional assassin. They use a relativistic kinetic kill vehicle. Picture a simple rod of dense, heavy metal, perhaps no larger than a small building. It is not filled with explosives. It does not carry a nuclear warhead. It does not need them. This object is accelerated to 99% of the speed of light. Because of the laws of physics, at that velocity, a simple piece of metal carries more kinetic energy than 1,000,000 atomic bombs. It does not scream through the atmosphere. It does not give us time to launch a defense or say our goodbyes. It simply arrives. One moment, you're walking down a busy street, checking your social media feeds, or worrying about your morning commute. The next moment, the sky turns into a blinding white wall of fire. The kinetic energy of the impact is so massive that it shatters the crust of the Earth. The atmosphere is stripped away in seconds. The oceans turn to steam. There is no struggle, no heroic resistance, and no final stand. There is only a sudden, absolute silence. From the perspective of the hunter who launched the weapon, this is not a war. It is not even an act of cruelty. It is simply a necessary chore. They have cleared a potential rival from the board before it could ever move. They have protected their children and their future by ensuring that the darkness of the forest remains theirs alone. This is the grim reality of the dark forest hypothesis. It suggests that the reason we have not heard from anyone else is not because the universe is empty, but because the smart ones have learned to stay quiet. They are hiding in the shadows, listening for the sound of a twig snapping. And we, in our youthful arrogance and our desperate need for connection, have been shouting our name into the dark for a century. We thought we were inviting a guest to a feast. We never realized that in a universe governed by the logic of survival, the only thing on the menu is us. The signal we received was not a greeting. It was a target lock. And the weapon that will end our story was likely launched before we even finished our reply. We are living in the final seconds of a long, beautiful dream, unaware that the Reaper has already swung the blade. But what if the logic of the dark forest is not the only way the universe operates? Perhaps there is an even more unsettling possibility. What if we have already been discovered, and the absolute silence we hear from the stars is not natural, but enforced? Welcome to the concept of the Velvet Terrarium. In this scenario, the galaxy is not a chaotic wilderness of competing hunters. It is an ordered, ancient estate managed by a singular, overwhelming force. We can call them the rule setters. These entities are so advanced that they do not see us as a threat to be eliminated, nor as equals to be greeted. To them, humanity is a fascinating biological curiosity, a primitive species kept in a state of planetary quarantine for their own amusement or study. Imagine you are a beetle living in a beautifully decorated glass tank. You have plenty of food, a comfortable temperature, and rocks to climb on. From your perspective, you are the master of your world. You have no idea that just beyond the glass, a massive observer is watching your every move, taking notes on your social behavior and your primitive attempts at technology. You feel free because you have never reached the edge of the glass. The Velvet Terrarium is exactly that. It is a cosmic cage lined with silk. The rule setters allow us to play with our smartphones, launch our tiny chemical rockets, and argue over our digital borders. They let us believe we are the masters of our destiny because, as long as we stay on our pale blue dot, we are harmless. The silence of the universe is not because it is empty. It is because the rule setters have silenced everyone else. They have created a zone of artificial peace, a galactic park where primitive life can evolve without being devoured by the predators of the deep. But there is a catch. The moment a species attempts to break the quarantine, the velvet glove comes off. Imagine the first time we successfully test a warp drive or send a colony ship to a neighboring star system. In that instant, we are no longer a harmless curiosity. We become a potential infection. The rule setters do not need to launch a kinetic weapon to destroy us. They simply tighten the cage. They could block our sun with a massive structure, scramble our communications with a flick of a switch, or simply reset our civilization back to the Stone Age. We are allowed to thrive, but only within the boundaries they have defined. Our entire history, our religions, and our grandest achievements are just data points in a cosmic experiment we do not understand. We are free to dream as long as we stay in our terrarium, But the moment we reach for the stars, we might find that the sky is not an open door, but a very thick sheet of glass. The most terrifying realization is not that we are alone, but that we are being kept. We like to debate the ethics of sending signals. We wonder if we should keep our voices down to avoid the hunters in the dark forest. But the terrifying truth is that it is already too late for us to hide. Human beings have been a beacon in the cosmos for billions of years. Our oxygen-rich atmosphere is a neon sign that tells any advanced civilization that life is here. Then came our radio waves. They are currently washing over distant star systems, carrying the sounds of our music and our wars. If there is a hunter out there, they already have our scent. They do not need us to say hello to know exactly where we live. We have been broadcasting our existence since before we even knew what a radio was. The die is cast. The signal we fear receiving might simply be the sound of the cage door closing or the quiet whistle of a weapon moving at the speed of light. Our history is no longer our own. We are simply waiting for the inevitable and final reply from them. Until next time, keep your eyes on the sky and maybe keep your voice down.